I know you've heard of the typical Build a Nation save, building out super teams in nations like Greece, Ireland, or Latvia in the hopes of winning a Champions League and overtaking a top 5 European League coefficient spot. But what if I told you there was an alternate way of playing it? One that I find more immersive, more rewarding, and has a ton of different branches of play styles that I think you will be really interested in. Today, I'm going to show you the alternate style of building a nation in Football Manager, and I hope you enjoy. I'll take you through what exactly is my alternate style of building a nation, why you should even try it in the first place, tips to make it more immersive and rewarding. Damn, I put my hands up a lot. And finally, leagues, nations, and combos of the two that I think you should try in your alternate build a nation save. All right. Let's start with the what. This build a nation is different in two main ways. The first, it's not all about winning. And second, you don't even have to play in the nation that you are trying to build. So I'll hop into my Canada build a nation save that I'm playing live on Twitch right now. So if you're ever interested in that, check out the links below to explain kind of what we are trying to do here with my alternate style of building a nation. The whole idea of this build a nation style is you pick a team and you pick a nation and you become a development team for that nation. So for this one, it is Canada and Portugal. We've picked Rabo de Peixe, which starts as a 4th Division Portugal side, and we've gotten them to the 1st Division in 6 seasons. We've only signed Canadian and partially Canadian players, as well as homegrown talents from the São Miguel Island where Rabo de Peixe resides. And the whole idea is to develop players for both the national team, as well as become a stepping stone club for Canadian players, mostly from North America, bring them to Europe, push them towards long and successful careers in Europe and other leagues. We are just a piece of the story for this nation's players. And by becoming a stepping stone club, a development club, a place to reignite the careers of players, we are a key part of their story and feel very integral to the nation's story as well in the footballing landscape. So in terms of tangible things that you can hold on to in regards to this type of build a nation save, we measure it in player development. Players that go from our club and move on to bigger clubs. Players that develop here and then go on to play for the national team, whether at a main or youth level. Players who may have been on the outside looking in of the national team later in their career, but a good run with your team gets them onto the squad. There's so many ways of doing this save, and I think that's what makes it really, really special and unique, and is good for any type of player. For instance, Max Anker, our starting goalkeeper here at Rabo de Peixe for the past 5 seasons, just got his first 2 caps for Canada in 2030 in season 6. It's been a long and winding road for him, but finally, 1st Division Portuguese football has put him into that spotlight, and I don't think he would have been there if not for us and this development path that we put him on. And then on the other end of it, there are young players that we were just a stepping stone club for. Players that may have been on the trajectory for the national team, but spent a little time with us before moving on to a bigger club in terms of salary or reputation, and then solidifying themselves on the national team. Andy Howard here had a few caps with us, went on to Deportiva Toluca in Liga MX, where he 10 times his salary, and is now a key player for the Canadian national team at only 20 years old. So let's get into the why. So why do a build a nation like this? I just thought it would be interesting to take a nation outside of Europe, find a good team to develop that talent on in Europe. And I've always been inspired by clubs like FC Nordsjælland or Wolves, who focus on certain nationalities and trying to develop those players as a club culture. I figured, why not do that myself? And I think the big why is because you can find so many different ways to enjoy this type of save. Focus on just winning. Or you could try and make the next type of FC Nordsjælland, where you're purely just a development squad. Or, like what I did in the Philippines, you can take control of the national team at the same time and try to convince them to become Filipino, whether they are playing on your club team already, trying to convince them to join your youth national team at a younger level. I think the biggest why at the end of the day is immersion. Despite not being the greatest player, a guy like Cameron Ula is such the epitome of this style of save. We've affiliated ourselves with a lower league Toronto club in the North Toronto Nitros, and just 3 years into this save, we got a Canadian new gen in our academy, and he might not be the best, but we can develop him here, and it adds so much to the story. And on the other end of it, we found an incredible non-league Canadian in Luke West, who is playing amateur football in the lower divisions of Canada, brought him over at a young age, and now he just got his first cap for Canada at only 19 by being a backup on a relatively mid-reputation club in the first division of Portugal. But sometimes that's all that it takes. And it's stories like these that really push you towards a why in this save, creating stories that you won't forget and feel super immersive. So let's get into some tips and ideas to make your save more immersive and how you can do that. I've already touched on it a little bit, but I'm gonna dive deeper. So in terms of making it more immersive and rewarding, there are a few things that you can do. The first that comes to mind, while coaching your club team, maybe you coach the youth national team of your chosen nation as well. You can become the guy who's searching out those young talents and maybe taking a couple of those best guys and bringing them to your club. Other ways of doing it is by setting up goals. And like I mentioned before, they don't all have to do with winning. Some of the goals that I have in my Rabo de Peixe Canada Build a Nation go as follows. Becoming an established first division Portuguese club, winning a domestic and European trophy, 5-star youth recruitment, because I do like to develop players from within our system as well, affiliations with both Toronto FC and York United, and eventually becoming the head coach of Canada, whether that be simultaneously as the club coach or maybe as the final steps of this Build a Nation. There's just so much avenue for storytelling in this type of save, so I think being open and being creative is always going to be your friend in this. And I know the main idea playing outside of the nation that you're choosing, but you could always do it within the nation as well. If I were to do this in Canada, I would pick a CPL team such as Vancouver or York and only play with Canadian players with the express goal of finding the best youngsters from non-division as well as through the super draft and within the CPL, developing them as a young core, and hopefully we can be that first step for Canadian players before they make a move to the MLS or Europe or maybe somewhere else in the world, but we want to be the premier development spot for Canadian talent. And all these things never have to be hard set rules. I want you guys to avoid that. They're only suggestions. Find the most immersive way that works for you. If you want to bring players from other nationalities as mentors or as players who can show what the next step is, do that. If you want to build multiple nations at the same time, maybe an idea that comes to mind for me is developing CONCACAF island nations such as Jamaica, the Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, Puerto Rico, and trying to have a CONCACAF focused team. Or it could be something as simple as what Ange Postecoglou did at Celtic. Just having a sprinkle of Asian players from both Japan and South Korea, and just having that as sort of club culture as a result of his coaching experience. I think a big thing for immersion as well is big focus on both the B team and youth team, and make sure you're finding diamonds in the rough or players who have slipped through the cracks, getting them to the nation that you're at, and depending on how strict the rules are in your league, making them homegrown nation by developing in your youth system from an age of 16, and can really become a cult favorite type player in your save because you've had them for so long. And if you really care about player development, don't get super stuck on the attributes. Watch your players during friendlies. Go scout games, go attend matches before you sign players. See how they look in-game and make decisions based off that, because I promise you, you will find more gems that will be memorable in your save if you do things like that and take big swings on players who might not look the best attribute-wise. I've gave you the whole spiel of what you can do, why you can do it. Let me give you some concrete examples of how you can get your very own save started. All right, I'm gonna run you through a couple of nations that I think would be really great and what European leagues I think it would be really fun to do them in. So the first one was one that I was almost gonna do instead of the Canada Build a Nation. Indonesia in the Netherlands / Eredivisie. Indonesia is one of the biggest populations of new gen players in Football Manager, so you will be spoiled for choice and will be able to create a team that is so yours because of the amount of players. And I choose Netherlands because it is a very open league in regards to getting foreign players in and registration, and there are a ton of partially Indonesian players in Indonesia as well as the real life population, so it just makes sense. Another good combo is Cape Verde for Portugal, and for this very same reasons as Indonesia. Really good examples of stories to be told in Football Manager where you can build up a smaller nation and maybe one day rival the nations in which you are based in, such as Portugal, such as the Netherlands. I think one that kind of goes under the radar, but when you think about it is super obvious, is a Welsh team in England. Whether you go for the higher end with Wrexham or Swansea City, or a little bit lower with Cardiff City or Newport County. Building a truly Welsh development team in England would be a really fun challenge, and trying to build Wales into the powerhouse that England is. A couple of quick-fire ones are Turkey and Germany, Mexico and Spain, the USA and the Bundesliga, Ivory Coast and France, Japan and Scotland. Really, the combinations are endless. And if you're looking for nations with open registration and an allowance for non-EU and foreign players, I'd go with leagues in Austria, Hungary, the Netherlands, Portugal, Germany, just to name a few. I'll put a link below, but this graphic will also show some of the most open registration leagues in the game. So there you have it. That is my way of doing a Build a Nation. It's loose, it's fun, and it really is all about the immersion. It's less about winning, and it's about national team and young player development that I think is very, very rewarding. I hope you try it. I hope you try some of these combos. Let me know what combos have worked for you if you ever try to save like this, and what ones you think of or might try to do as a result. Let me know. Thank you guys as always. If you liked the video, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.